Shalom. This is Sabbath, and I'm back with the Holy Feast Days of Yahawah. This is part 2. We're going to complete the study on the highest of all holy days called Yawam HaShabath. And this part 2 is called the Eternal Shabath. So let's get started. These Shabbathawath, meaning Sabbaths, play pivotal roles for Yashraal, even while we're living here in the lands of our captivity, and also when we begin to live in eternity. These Shabbathawath are prophetic events that had and will take place in their times appointed. So all of these Shabbathawath that we will look at, they are in fact prophetic events. Some have taken place already, like the Pesach and unleavened bread. All these events have taken place. But as we look at them individually, we'll see how they have taken place, what happened, and how they are relevant and why they are relevant for us today. All right? And the ones that have not taken place yet, we will look at why and when they will be taking place. These events reveal Yahawah's prophetic calendar, and this helps us to know the season and the time that we are living in. So each of these events, they happen one after the other and not before they are their time appointed. So you're not going to have the Feast of Tabernacles happening next, because that's one of the few that are left to be for that event to be fulfilled. That is the very last event to take place. And as you see, when Elohim Yahawah gave Masha the list of events that Habanai or Yashraal, meaning the children of Yashraal, are to celebrate, he gave them in the order in which they will be fulfilled. Starting always with who? With what? With Yawam HaShabath. That was the very first one that was fulfilled by who? Yahawah himself, because after he worked, he rested on the seventh day. And he blessed it and made it holy, and he sanctified that day. And when we keep Yawam HaShabath, he also blesses us and he sanctifies us. So that feast day has already been fulfilled, but we are still supposed to keep this day as our holy day, as a holy convocation, no matter where we are. Okay? For all eternity is what he said. Okay? And in the next part 3, we will look at the Pesach and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right? So this is the calendar that if we are observant, and we are observing, they will help us to understand the season that we're living in and the events that are due to take place. What we are looking forward to, this is speaking of the 12 tribes of Yashraal that have been divided into 2 kingdoms, the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom, we are looking forward for our regathering, which will be the chariots that are coming to retrieve us off this earth. The northern kingdom will be going into the second Exodus, into the wilderness. They're going to walk all the way to the land, Yashraal. All right? So when we are given the understanding and the knowledge of these feast days and how significant they are, then we will understand the prophetic calendar and we will understand the season that we're living in. All right? This is how Allah Hayam is dealing with us as a people. We don't have a calendar that has everything listed day by day. You know, you go and look on the calendar and it tells you all the different days that are coming up, whether it's Father's Day or Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, all the pagan holidays, right? They're all listed on the calendar year by year. But our calendar is different because our calendar has to do with prophetic events, that has to do with Him delivering His people. All right? And not only delivering them, but regathering them to Himself. And the different events, they are also preparation for us. They're helping us to be prepared for the time when we are finally regathered. Okay. These prophetic events allow us to know that one day, very soon, we will be regathered and return to our home, to dwell with our Savior, Hamashiach, and Yahawah forevermore in peace and in prosperity. So at the very ending of these feast days, I'm not going to give you a number. We're going to go through them one by one and see what number we will end up with. It's definitely more than 7. Okay? Because if we include Yawam HaShabath, it's 8. But then there's another feast there in there as well. That is not really counted. Okay. So we're getting ourselves ready to be returned to our land. But before the southern kingdom can return to the land called Yashraal, which is not in Africa, by the way. Africa is its own land for the Hamites. We are not Hamites. Many of our brethren, we have made that mistake. We are not Hamites. We're not of the people of Ham. We are of Sham. All right? So we're not going back to Africa. Sorry to say. Nevertheless, we're getting ourselves ready to return home to our land. The southern kingdom will be taken off this earth temporarily, and then they will be returned with Hamashiach, as it's been spoken through the mouth of Yochanan in the book of Revelation, chapter 19, when he comes back as king, riding on a white horse. And behind him will be the saints riding on white horses. That is the southern kingdom. And that's when we will finally be returned to our land, Yashraal, to be made one kingdom with the northern kingdom in the hand of Hamashiach. All right? And then we will be living in peace and prosperity. Not saying that we weren't living in peace and prosperity in third heaven. Yes, we were. Yes, we will be. Actually, it hasn't happened yet. But it will continue on earth in the land called Yashraal, where we will be living in peace and prosperity. None of us ever having to fight another war ever again. All the events taking place will be to do with the Gentiles and the destruction of the wicked ones, whether the agents of the devils, the Nephilim spirits, the fallen angels, the Satans, all of them combined. That's what Allah Hayam is going to deal with last. While we are living in peace and prosperity, we will not even know that these things are taking place around us, because we will have a wall of fire around us. And that wall of fire will prevent the enemies from coming into our land. All right? They will want to, but Hamashiach will be there with us. The tabernacle of Allah Hayam Yahawah will be there amongst us. So they can't come near our land. And especially when Hamashiach starts the 1,000-year reign, they don't have a choice. In fact, the devils will be hushed up. That final Satan will be locked away, called Gadriel. And all the other fallen angels and the devils and the unclean spirits will be benched. He will have them in holding somewhere, in prison. They can't move, they can't speak, they can't do anything, so the earth will have peace for 1,000 years. And even if someone wants to do anything against us, they just can't. They can't do it. All right? But in the meantime, when the southern kingdom is taken off this earth, the northern kingdom, they will be protected all the way when they reach the land called Yashraal. They are going to have that wall of fire around them. And that's why the prophecy says they're going to be living in safety. And no one will cause them to fear anymore. They will not see all the events taking place around them. We are in third heaven. We obviously not going to see anything. But after we come back to the earth, once again, we'll be coming back to enjoy peace and prosperity. It will be the Gentiles that will have to endure the turmoil, some turmoil amongst themselves. And that's why they're going to be separated. You're going to have the northern quarters where the wicked will congregate together, and the southern quarter, which will be where the people of Allah Hayam, the Gentiles, will live. That's why when Gadriel is released, he then will go up to the north quarters, and that's where all of them are going to come from to enter in to the mountains of Yashraal, and that's where Allah Hayam Yahawah is going to destroy every single one of them. All right? But as we look at the prophetic events, these feast days, which are prophetic events, we will see how things are going, how the progress of our regathering and our reunion with the northern kingdom and our reunion with Al Hayam Yahawah and Hamashiach, of course, will all take place. And then the reunion with our own land. Hallelujah. It's all there. These prophetic events are to give us hope each time the days of their celebrations come to pass. So every time we look at these days on a calendar and we celebrate them in hope. All right? Even though the Pesach is already past, well, of course, Yawam HaShabath is already past, but, there's always something future coming that's attached to something that's already passed. And that's what this second study to do with Shabath is going to look at. Because although Yawam HaShabath is already being fulfilled by Yahawah, because it is his holy day, his day of rest, we are looking ahead to a future eternal Shabath. You see it? Do you see what I'm saying? Okay? So it's not done and just put aside and never to happen again. This is something that it will be reoccurring even after we are regathered and after the earth is cleansed of wickedness. We will be living in... Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. See what you want, get away ahead. That's the lesson right there on the spot. Okay. All right. Let me stop there. Okay. Let's stop there. We'll see that coming on throughout this study here. All right. So each time we celebrate, we're not celebrating without a reason, without a purpose. As we are living here in the lands of our captivity, what the enemy wants to do with us is to cause us to lose hope, to become fearful, to question the word of Allah. But as we look at these feast days and we understand what they mean, they are to give us hope and understanding to look ahead for a future that is going to be bright and beautiful. All right? That's what they mean to us. Bright and beautiful future that is coming. All right? Now, these prophetic events, sorry, I read that already, starting with Yawam HaShabath, we are promised eternal rest from all our labors. And each time we celebrate this holy day, we ought to remember this. So we celebrate Yawam HaShabath. I'm very sorry if I'm going to make any strange noises. It's just I have this. It's very, very hot here. It is so hot, and I have this, running down my face, the drips of perspiration. So I just want to take that up. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, starting with Yawam HaShabath, let me read that again. We are promised eternal rest from all our labors, and each time we celebrate this holy day, we ought to remember this. So, like I said, it is not merely out of obedience that we are celebrating this day. It is because it is attached to something in the future that we are being reminded of from week to week, that there is something great concerning Yawam HaShabath, that we are going to be a part of it in the future. It is no wonder why after we celebrate Yawam HaShabath on its correct day, that we feel refreshed. We feel revived, because it is to reassure us that this feeling of being refreshed and this feeling of being revived is going to be eternal once we enter into the rest of Allah Yahawah, which is his eternal Shabath. All right, this is what it is promising us today, each time we celebrate it. So the foolish ones of our brethren that tell other people, not us, that tell themselves and other people that we don't need to celebrate Yawam HaShabath while living in the lands of our captivity, they are teaching in error. They are believing in error. How can you look ahead to a future Shabbat if you don't even celebrate the one that we have here on the earth? That has been given to us week by week for us to embrace, and for it in turn to offer us hope for a bright and beautiful future. How do people get by from week to week, to another week, from month to month, from year to year, without celebrating Yawam HaShabath? I wonder. All right? So it's not just now about, yes, he wants us to be obedient to celebrate this day, but he also wants us to know why. There's a reason why. Okay? We know the reason from the past. It is his high holy day that he rested. But he also wants us to be a part of it every week until we reach the future when it becomes eternal. That's the reason why. We will now look at what it means to live in eternal rest, to live perpetually and eternally in HaShabath. So let's look at Psalm 95 verse 6. Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before Yahawah, Oshana, our Maker. That's what Oshana means in our language, our Maker. For he is Allahayana, our Allahayam, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. And I know this is a song that we used to sing in church back in those days. And I still love this song. I love it. When I used to sing this song back in the days when I was in the church, it did something inside of me. It just broke me. Not in a bad way, but in a good way. I don't know, it just triggered something inside of me, and now I know why. Now I know why. I still sing this song to him. But now I know why after doing these studies. Let's carry on. Before we go on, now he is comparing us to his sheep because he is the good shepherd. And the good shepherd, he laid down his life for his sheep so that they can come in to his pasture. And his pasture is his kingdom. All right? It's not meant for goats. It's not meant for anyone else but sheep. His sheep. Today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your heart as in the provocation, and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my work. So now he's warning us in order to enter into his pasture, which is his kingdom. We have to be obedient, and we have to humble ourselves when he reproves us. All right? We have to humble ourselves. We cannot allow pride to come in to cause us to be hardened against his correction. And he speaks to us through various means, through his ruach, through his word, again, that's his ruach, and through people, and that again, that's his word. He will send someone to speak to you. And you got to recognize his voice when he's speaking to you and realize that's not the person. That's a message for me. That's definitely Allahayam Yahawah speaking to me through this person. Okay? And you don't look at the messenger, but you listen to the message. And when you are obedient to the message, because Ruach HaKadosh is there to prick our hearts, to prick our conscience, to tell us, pay attention. I'm speaking through this person. I'm speaking this word through these scriptures to you. Don't harden your heart in pride. Who hardened Pharaoh's heart? Weren't the devils released by the name of Mastema, by Allahayam Yahawah? He released them to harden Pharaoh's heart. Hatred. Mastema means hatred. All right? And when we allow our hearts to be hardened, it's because we allow Mastema, who is hatred, to bring rebellion to us. And we rebel against the voice of Allahayam Yahawah, and it becomes a provocation. Because we're provoking him to wrath. And this is what our forefathers did when they were in the wilderness. Even from the beginning, before they left Goshen, they didn't want to leave. There were some of them that didn't want to leave, and he struck them down in the 3 days of darkness. And then the ones that actually did made it out. When they reached the water's edge and they realized that they were being followed by Pharaoh, they were all grumbling and complaining and saying, well, we might have well have stayed in Goshen. At least we are not going to be killed. We weren't going to be killed there as we're going to be killed here. And even after Allah created that wonderful miracle of splitting the Red Sea in half, 2 walls of water on either side, and they walked through on dry ground. It wasn't even muddy. It was dry ground. And they crossed over on the other side, and they watched to see their enemies, the ones who had plagued them, the ones who tormented them and killed their babies, drowned in the Red Sea, every single one of them. And after 3 days, they rejoiced, They started singing and dancing and celebrating. And after 3 days of not having any water, they start grumbling and complaining. They forgot the miracles in Matzorayim in Goshen. And they forgot the miracle of them crossing the Red Sea on dry land. And they forgot the miracle of watching their enemies being destroyed. And the minute they grew thirsty, they start grumbling and complaining. And they did that for food. They did that because they were tired eating just the manna and drinking water. They wanted more. They looked at the manna and they said, you know what? We're tired of this light bread. And you see that light bread? That was angels' food that the Most High sent from heaven to feed his people, our people. And even that they complained about. I would love to have manna today, and I will live on manna from now until he's ready to gather me. All right? It was the healthiest food that they could ever eat. It had all the nutrients that their bodies needed. But they wanted more. They wanted the leeks and the onions and the garlic and all the different things, the meat pots. So Allah sent them quails. They kept complaining and complaining while they were in the wilderness. They were never grateful for anything that he did for them. Neither did they remember the miracles that he did for them. And every time they complained, it was provocation, which made him angry. And this is a lesson for us today, that no matter how difficult life may be for you, do not grumble, do not complain. I have to remind myself of this because life here is not easy. I'm living in a totally different culture. So the mindset is contrary to my mindset. Everything that they do is contrary to how I am. And it's just me here. All right? And there are days that I just feel like pulling my hair out. But he understands and he knows. And I remember my forefathers and I repent. And I say, okay, Father, give me strength for another day. And day by day, I pray for strength. All right? Pray for strength. Do not provoke the Most High, Allah Yahawah, with your grumbling and complaining. Even though life is tough, life is hard, do not complain. Even though you only have 2 pennies and nothing more, nothing extra, give thanks for that. Even if you have 1 penny, give thanks for that. If you have no pennies, give thanks for the coming 2 pennies that he's going to bring you or send to you. Always give thanks in anticipation of his help that he will send. You may not see it today, you may not even see it tomorrow, but give thanks. Always give thanks. Because the enemy cannot harden our hearts when we're giving thanks to Allah, even when we don't have anything to give thanks for. You have one meal a day, give thanks for that. Because he can cause that one meal to sustain you for the entire day till the next day when you're eating that other one meal. Give thanks. You know, there's a song, give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks. Just give thanks. When you start giving thanks, when that spirit of grumbling comes upon you, because it's not within us, it comes to provoke us to grumble. When it comes, stop. Stop. And say, thank you, Father. And just keep saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And in our language, it's called Thawada Atha. Just say Thawada Atha Abba. Thawada Atha Abba. That means thank you, Father. Every day now, I get down on my knees and I give thanks. And not once, not twice, not 3 times. But throughout the day, like Dana Ya'al, I give thanks. Along with all the other words that I pray to him, I remember to give him thanks. And I will strongly encourage you to do the same. You pray and end it with thanksgiving. All right? Our forefathers provoked Allah to anger, to wrath, where he destroyed them in the wilderness. They never saw the promised land, and they will never enter into his rest. That means they will never enter into the kingdom. That means they're doomed for destruction. They're heading straight for the lake of fire when it's created. All right, let's read on. Verse 10. 40 years long was I grieved with this generation, and said, it is a people that do err in their heart, and they have not known my ways. They tempted him, they proved him, even though they saw his work. They rejoiced when things were good, but when life got a little difficult in the wilderness, they grumbled and complained. They even tried to rise up, or raise themselves up to be leaders over Masha. And Allah had to put them out of their misery to show them, the congregation, who he has raised up to be the leaders in the camp. You see, there were some of them that were jealous over Masha and Ahawara because they want to be leaders. You know, like how they have people today that call themselves the new Moses, the new deliverer. There are a lot of our people out there walking around calling themselves Moses. They're fakers. Allah is not going to use another man to deliver his people. He's doing it himself. He's going to do it himself. And he said they err in their heart. That means that they've made a grave mistake. And not just one, mistakes. Why? Because they did not know his ways. Why? Because they did not know him. You see, in their hearts, they still had mammon dwelling there. And how do we know this? Because when Masha went up to the mountain, the Mount Sinai, to receive the laws written on, actually there were the 10 commandments written on stone tablets. He was up there for 40 days and 40 nights, and on his way down, he heard a sound coming from the camp. But what had happened, even though they can see the thundering and the lightning and the clouds and everything on top, and the fire on top of the mountain, These wicked forefathers of ours wanted to create their own gods because Masha took too long to come back to them. And so they went to Yahawah, who was leader over them, who should have known better, but because he was afraid of the people, he was more afraid of the people than he was afraid of Allah Yahawah. That's why he never made it into the land, the promised land either. Masha didn't make it into the promised land either because he disobeyed as well. But they will enter into the eternal rest of Allah at the end of the age. They died, but they did not perish. That's a difference. When you perish, that means that you're done for. You're heading straight to the lake of fire. And they asked Yahawah to make them gods that would have brought them out from Goshen. And so they brought their gold, and Yahawah fashioned a calf, a golden calf, which they called their gods. And they were down in the camp reveling all around this golden calf. And that's when Masha saw them. And Yahawah was so angry, he wanted to destroy all of them and kept only Masha. And of course, his servant with him was Yahawah, who was Joshua. All right? Because he turned to Joshua, or was it Joshua that turned to Masha and said, "What's this? What's this that we're hearing? Are they shouting because of victory over a battle?" I'm paraphrasing here. Are they? Anyways. But when they came into the camp, Masha and Yahawah, who is Joshua, they saw the people reveling around this golden calf, and Masha was angry. And he broke the 2 tablets with the commandments that were the contract between Yashraal, the 12 tribes, and Allah Yahawah, for the covenant that he made with them before even Masha went up to the mountain. They said, yes, all that Allah said we would do, because Allah already told Masha about the 10 commandments, the 10 laws that they were to uphold. And the first one, which was to take no other gods beside me. Do not bow down to them. Don't do anything. That was the first. Don't make any images of any gods. And they broke those laws. And when you break one, you might as well, you're considered breaking all of them. Because they were worshiping a golden calf, which is the god of Mammon, that was hiding in their hearts, that they never got rid of. They left Goshen with it, and they kept it throughout the wilderness. That's the reason why they were constantly complaining, because of this God that was hidden in their hearts. And this is the problem with our people today. We still have the golden calf hiding in our hearts. It's called Mammon. HaMashiach spoke about it. He said you cannot serve God. Sorry. And that's the Bible, right? You cannot serve Allah and Mammon together, although because you will hate one and love the other. And because you love Mammon, you will hate Allah Yahawah. And that has been proven to be true, because people that love riches and wealth and all the things that comes with it, they turn their backs to Allah Yahawah and his ways, and the ways in which he wants us to live. All right? Because in the pursuit of wealth, you got to let go of him. You have to let go of him. Yes, some of our forefathers were wealthy, but that was wealth that he gave to them because they were ready to handle it. Abraham was a very wealthy man, but wealth was not his true love. Al-Hayam Yahawah was his love. The wealth is just something that he had. And that's the difference between our people today, and people like Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, our three main forefathers that Al-Hayam Yahawah made a covenant with. And only because of them and the fact that Al-Hayam Yahawah is sacred to his word, that he has not done away with us. He is sacred to his promises, and he made a promise to Abraham, to Yitzhak and Yaakov, that their seed will receive the same covenant of that he made with them. However, there are consequences to that covenant, and it's called the commandments. There are the 10 commandments. And if we're not upholding his 10 commandments, then we are in breach of his covenant, because those are his ways in which we have to live by. And our forefathers, they err in their heart because they did not know his ways. Not that they didn't know because he told them, but they did not want to know. They heard with their ears, but they did not let it saturate their souls. Let it sink in to their hearts, because their hearts were already occupied by idolatry. But when Al-Hayam Yahawah is sitting on the throne of our hearts, then his word would penetrate us, will penetrate our hearts and our minds, and we will walk in them. And then it can be said that we know his ways. We're walking in them because we know them. The fact that they didn't walk in his ways is because they didn't know him, and they didn't know, well, not that they didn't know his ways, but they didn't want to know his ways, because he was just there to supply their needs. And he tolerated them for the sake of our forefathers, and for the fact that he already knew that they were going to be this way, but coming in the distant future will be a generation that will be completely and drastically different from these wicked ones. They will be the ones that will cast away mammon. They will be the ones that will be faithful to him because they trust in his spoken word. They trust in the promises that he has made. They're the ones that will not grumble and complain even when life is hard. That's the generation that he saw in the future that caused him to tolerate these wicked ones in the wilderness. And we are that generation. Verse 11, unto whom I swore my wrath that they should not enter into my rest. What is his rest? His pasture, his kingdom, where he dwells, where he is, and where we can live in peace and prosperity forevermore. That is the eternal rest that we're looking forward to every time we celebrate Yawam HaShabath. Yawam HaShabath began with a day that was blessed by Yahawah because he rested on this day. Then he made it a command for his people, the 12 tribes of Yashrael, to always celebrate this day throughout their generations. He gave our forefathers instructions concerning how this day is to be kept holy and how his people ought to keep themselves undefiled on this day, meaning no intercourse with your spouse. I know a lot of people have a big problem with this. Of course, we have to keep ourselves undefiled always, but when it comes to his Shabbath, we must abstain from intercourse on this day. So you're married, husband and wife, man and woman, born man, born woman. You have to make these definitions, right? You're married. Not saying that intercourse is a defilement, because it is not. Allah Hayam created it so that we can procreate. However, on his highest holy day called Yawam HaShabath, when anyone partakes of intercourse, a husband and a wife, I'm speaking of the brethren, I'm not talking about the Gentiles, the brethren. All right? When they have intercourse with their spouse, then they are defiling themselves and defiling his holy day. One day that he says is for him, the other 6 days belong to us. All right? And I'm sure if your hearts are in the right place, you can go 24 hours without it. If you can't, then you have a problem and you need to address that problem. All right. I heard that already. The other main instruction is that this highest of all holy days is to be a holy convocation where no work is to be done. When we are obedient to follow his instructions, then he is pleased. But if we disobey, then he is being provoked to wrath. I know people will say, but I work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. How can I keep Shabbat in the middle of the week when I'm supposed to be working? Well, that's a problem that you need to address to Allah Hayam Yahawah. Are you serious about him, or are you serious about your work? Are you serious about eternal life with him, or are you serious about eternal life in the lake of fire? What are you truly sincere about? If you are sincere about him, then you will make the due adjustments to your life to make sure that you are obeying him. But if you want to serve mammon, go ahead. Work 9 to 5, work every day in the week. Work 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Go get that money, buy that big fancy house, fancy car, what have you, and enjoy it while you can. Because there ain't no such thing in the lake of fire. Only eternal pain and sorrows and diseases. No friends, no family members, nothing. Just torment, day and night for all eternity. So enjoy it now while you can. Yes, you might have to make some adjustments to your life. Yes, you may have to start budgeting, might have to start selling off some things, selling your house, selling whatever, moving to a studio apartment, whatever it takes for you to adhere to his commandment. We are to do it throughout our generations for all eternity. That doesn't mean that we need to stop because we're living in the lands of our captivity and we have to go and work. Doesn't mean that at all. You need to trust him. If you're sincere in your heart, he will meet you where you are. He met me where I'm at. But the problem is with our people is that they want to live big up. They want to live posh lives. They may have come from poverty. They don't want to go back to poverty. And then the next thing they'll say, oh, it is not his will for us to be poor. I don't know where they get that from. Hamashiach, who is our Savior, he wasn't rich. I'm talking about, but he wasn't poor either. Because whatever he needed, his Father supplied. And even though we may not have the wealth of other, like what other people have, you can say that you're not poor either. Because you're living on the promises of Allah Hayam Yahawah. How can you be poor? You're living in anticipation of what he is going to give to you, give to us. So how can you think that you're poor? You're just passing through a bottleneck, so to speak. A time where you're going to have to drop everything off you. You can't go through this passageway with anything. It's temporary. But he calls us kings and priests. How can you call yourself poor? And that's why our brethren today, they pursue wealth. Because they want what the Gentiles have. They've been deprived because of slavery and how they've seen their families living, hand to mouth kind of thing. They don't want to live that way. They want to have a nice posh car. They want to have a nice big fancy house. They just want things because they're tired of living in poverty. But you're living in poverty because your mind is poor. Your heart is poor too. But when you have the mind of Allah Hayam Yahawah, when you have his heart, you will never be poor. Because when the enemy comes to show you what the Gentiles have, you can think, well, I'm going to have something better than that. Because rust and dust will corrupt their things. But where I'm going and what I'm going to have is going to be eternal. So it's okay if I have to go through this little tunnel, this little time of tightness, financially and every which way. It's okay. Because I know a time is coming when I'm going to be living so happily. Not because I have things, but because I'm going to have peace. And living in the presence of Allah Hayam Yahawah, I'm going to be full of joy. I will never know what it is to be sorrowful again. I would never know what pain is. I would never know what it is to be hungry or thirsty or tired or sleepy. None of those things I will ever have to experience again. Just pure love. Pure love from him, pure love from my spouse, pure love from my family members, pure love from my friends. I would never experience anything negative again. Money can't buy that. You have friends, you don't even know if they're your true friends because they'll cut you down behind your back. They laugh at you to your face. As soon as you turn your back, they cut you down. That's not the kind of friends that we're going to have in the kingdom. We're going to have true friends and pure love. So let's read on. Our forefathers rebelled against him in the wilderness, causing his wrath to fall upon them, with the exception of a few. Talking about Yahawah and his household, which should be Joshua, and Caleb, who is Caleb, and his household. And there were probably a handful of others too, but these two particular ones, they saw the promise. And I meant to say this while I was talking about the temptations in the wilderness, that the last provocation that our forefathers made towards Allah Hayam Yahawah was when he sent the 12 spies into the promised land, one leader from every tribe. So there would be 12 men. And Yahawah and Caleb were amongst those 12. And they walked through the breadth and the width of the land. The breadth is the width, sorry, the length and the breadth. Oh my goodness, sometimes. Oh my goodness. Okay, they walked through the breadth and the length of the land. Just like in one of my other studies, I was talking, I think it was the 3 days of darkness when we are going to be regathered, and I was talking about from the roof to the ceiling. I was like, sometimes things just come out wrong, all right? They just come out wrong. I meant to say the roof to the flooring, and I said the roof to the ceiling. But anyways, those 12 spies, those 12 leaders of the 12 tribes, one from each tribe, they went into the land to spy out the land because Yahawah wanted his people to know what he was about to give to them, the precious gift that he was about to give to them. All right, he said it was a land flowing with milk and honey, with richness and sweetness. That's what milk and honey means. So these 12 spies, they walked the length and breadth of the land for 40 days and 40 nights. And when they returned, they brought back evidence of what was growing in the land. A bunch of grapes, 2 men had to carry them between themselves. And examples of pomegranates, they were so huge. Everything was all the things that they brought them were huge. And they saw the things, and they heard about how great it was a land with villages and cities and everything that they will need. However, there's one drawback. There were giants in the land. And as soon as the people heard that there were giants in the land, that's when they dropped. Their spirits dropped. They wanted the things, the fruits, the villages, the houses, whatever. They wanted those things, but they didn't want to work to get those things. And Elohim, he had trained them to be warriors, and this was part of their pruning process, that they had to fight now for what they had to get. And he said, I will go before you and deal with these giants. Even though you have to go and literally fight against them, you will not die, but I will destroy them for you. But they didn't believe him. And so 10 of those 12 men spoke against going into the land because of these giants that can come and overtake them. They said they looked like grasshoppers, meaning the children of Yahshua looked like grasshoppers compared to these giants. They were the Anakim. And Elohim knew that the giants were there. But this was a test of faith, where they can take down a giant, where they can believe that they can take down the giants because Elohim is with them. And when the camp decided that they didn't want to go, that's when Caleb and Yahawah spoke up and said, don't worry about the giants, because Elohim said he will go with us. We can do this. We can take the land. And there was a big uproar. You know how it is with our people. They like to get all brawling and crude. And then Elohim got angry. And he said to Masha, tell the people, make an about turn and head back into the wilderness. They were already in the wilderness for a few weeks. I guess they didn't get enough dried out. Their hearts weren't dried out enough. The evil in them weren't dried out enough. He sent them back to the wilderness, and there they died. He said, you're going to die in the wilderness now. That's the last straw that broke your camel's back. And when he said, go back to the wilderness, that's when the people said, okay, but we can go, we can take the land. The land is ours. We can go, Masha, we can go. We're willing and ready to go. And Alahayam said, wait a minute, on whose terms are you going to do what I say? Are you going to do it on my terms? Or are you going to do it on your terms? You see, when it's on their terms, they're okay with it. But when it comes to Alahayam Yahawah and what he wants us to do, we don't want to do it. All right? It's not about us, it's about him, his terms. So our forefathers did not want to go on his terms. And when he said, go back to the wilderness, that's when they say, okay, well, we can do it then. And Masha said, well, if you go, you're going by yourself and you're going to be destroyed. Turn around and head back to the wilderness. That ship has passed. Well, he didn't say that literally, but that is done. You made your choice, and Al-Hayam has made his. He's not going with you in the land. So if you go in and go against the giants, you will be destroyed. And this is our forefathers, and this is our people even up to today. Okay, let's move on. They were incapable of believing in his spoken word, even though they saw his miracles and their deliverance from hard and harsh bondage. They also saw the destruction of their enemies and received reparations for work they did for Matzorayam without pay. Yet they could not believe that Alahayam Yahawah was more than able to provide for them in the wilderness. Their constant grumbling and complaining meant that they had no faith, even though they saw the great miracles with their own eyes. Therefore, it goes to say that without faith it is impossible to believe in Alahayam Yahawah. And so a person will walk in disobedience. So if you have no faith, you will fear and you will walk in disobedience. And that's what happened a few years ago when the disease came in and the toxin, which is the poison that they wanted to put inside the people for a hoax. Not going to say too much words because you know how it is with this algorithm. All right. A lot of people, listened to their pastors and went ahead and took it because of fear. Only because of fear. And they also was afraid of losing their livelihoods. They were afraid of a lot of things. So that meant that they had no faith to believe that even if this thing was real, Alahayam can heal. But they didn't believe in him. And so they succumbed to the evil agenda. And we know where they're going to end up later on. And that's disobedience. Disobedience means rebellion, and rebellion means that you're going to end up in the lake of fire, especially for something like this where you cannot repent for it. Because once it goes into your bodies, it can't be taken out. It's different when you say something that you didn't mean to say, or you do something that you didn't mean to do, which is an action that you can make. Well, you bear the consequences, but you can make repentance. You can ask for forgiveness from the Father. But something like the toxin, which we know is the mark of the beast, how are you going to ask for forgiveness for that? That's something that goes in, that mixes in with you, that cannot be taken out again. And there's still many of our brethren today that claim that it isn't the mark of the beast. Well, let them keep saying that. Okay, let's move on. The result of rebellion against Alahayam Yahawah is to be cut off from his rest that he had promised Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov when he made a covenant with them and their seed forever. The covenant came because these forefathers believed in Alahayam Yahawah, which increased their faith in him. They were his faithful servants who lived righteously before him. So when you are faithful to Alahayam Allah Hayam Yahawah, we are blessed with righteousness. All right? And you cannot be righteous without faith, and you cannot have faith without being righteous. And how it all begins is by believing in his son, Yahawah HaShabath. Because the righteousness of the son now becomes our righteousness because we believe in the son. Let's look at Oberai, which is the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verse 1. Let us therefore fear lest a promise of being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. So you see, you can hear the word of Allah Hayam Yahawah, but if you don't believe in him, then his words are just words. Because you now need to believe in the words that he has spoken. And the only way you're going to believe in his words is if you first believe in his son, who then releases Ruach HaKadosh, who brings understanding, who gives us knowledge, wisdom, and discernment. So now the word now is incorporated in us. It's called truth. And truth is a light that shines in our hearts, that searches out any darkness so that it can be removed. And that darkness are lies and deception that we've been fed for many generations. Verse 3, for we who have believed do enter into rest. So when we believe in Hamashiach, that's the beginning of our entering into Allah Hayam's rest, his eternal rest. As he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. So he knew even from before he created the heavens and the earth and everything therein, he already knew who belonged to him, who will belong to him, who will enter into his rest. So that's why we are not supposed to waste our time trying to convince people of Allah Hayam Yahawah. It's one thing when people come to you to ask you a question and you can give them an answer, but it's not up to us to go and try to persuade people into the kingdom, because the kingdom is not meant for everybody. It's only meant for those that were selected from the foundation of the earth. Oberai chapter 4 verse 4. For he spoke in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and Allah Hayam did rest on the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Seeing therefore it remains that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. So our forefathers, even though Allah Hayam through Masha, because he spoke to Masha and Masha spoke to the people, they did not believe because they had no faith, and they grumbled and complained. So he swore that they will not enter into his rest, meaning his eternal rest, meaning his kingdom at the end of the age. They are not allowed in. They are cut off because they provoked him to wrath. They did not believe anything that he said. Verse 7. Again, he limited, meaning he determined, he appointed a certain day, saying in Dawad, today after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. When he speaks to us today, when you hear the word of Allah Hayam through his servants today, when you read the scriptures and Ruach HaKadosh is speaking to you today, you are not supposed to harden your hearts. You're supposed to obey, even though it may hurt. You have to go and make amendments. You have to go and repent. Humble yourself. Either fall on the rock or the rock will fall on you. Let me fall on the rock. It is His mercy when He allows me to fall on the rock. But when the rock falls on you, you're done. You're done. We have to understand the point that the servant of Allah Hayam is making to us, that there is a future rest for all who believe in His Son. And those who do not believe will not enter into His rest. Now, another point to note is that it will be Allah Hayam Yahawah's rest and not ours. So He is giving us a gift of rest that is His. It's a blessing. And it's a blessing today when we enter into Yawam HaShabath. And it's going to be a even sweeter blessing in the future when we're regathered. Now, sorry, read that already. He repeatedly said, my rest or His rest. Therefore, it is not about us. It is about Him and His promise to His people who believe and are obedient to Him. His rest then is a gift, a reward for obedience. So when we are obedient and we purpose in our hearts that we're going to keep Yawam HaShabath, then we are setting the stage for us to be blessed. Not on that day that we've kept as His Shabath, the correct day that is, but for the future, eternal Shabath. And let me just say this. The people that you're going to find that will struggle and try to change the conditions of Yawam HaShabath are the people that do not worship Yahawah. They worship Yahuwah. They worship Ahaya. They worship Yahweh. They worship all the pagan gods. They worship Jesus. They worship the pagan gods. And that's why they are not too worried about Yawam HaShabath. They work Monday to Friday. They keep Friday evening to Saturday evening as their Shabbat. And they think that's good enough. Some even keep Sunday as their Shabbat. And they think that's good enough because they go to church. And they think that as long as we're keeping Shabbat, then it doesn't matter which day it is. That's another lie from the pit of hell. There are even brethren that say, well, we're going to keep Shabbat every day, because every day is a Shabbat. That's another lie from the pit of hell. There's only one day that He wants us to keep, and that is His day that He has selected on His calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, and not certainly the fakers in our land, not their calendar. So we need to do some homework to determine when this day is. And I've done the calendar. And I will post it when it is completed. So it's up to you to choose to follow it or not. It does not hamper my getting into the kingdom. I do what He tells me to do. And because I'm being obedient, He will deal with me on that level. I am not responsible for people that refuse to believe. No more than Noah, who is Noah, he wasn't responsible for the people that he preached to. Those wicked ones in the valley, he wasn't responsible for them, and they all perished. Their blood were on their own shoulders, not Noah or his family. So as long as I remain obedient and I put the information there, it is up to people to receive it or reject it. Not mine. Okay? So it's up to you. Obarai chapter 4, continuing on, verse 8. For if Yahawah had given them rest, then would He not afterward have spoken of another day? There remained therefore a rest to the people of Alahayam, Alahayam. Verse 10. For he that is entered into his rest, he also have ceased from his own works, as Alahayam did from his. Let us labor therefore to enter into that rest, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief. So you have to understand now that this idea of entering in to his rest is not something that has already been done, but something that will be done in the future. All right? It was Yahawah who led our forefathers out of Goshen as a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day. They were led into the wilderness to be refined and transformed into a holy and righteous people. Yet they lacked the faith to be transformed, and they perished in the wilderness. Yahawah came to the earth as a meek and humble servant to die for the sins of his people, so that through his death we are redeemed to Ha'aba, without the penalty of death hanging over our heads. So, because we believe in HaMashiach, that he died on the stake, and our sins have been forgiven, have been wiped clean, and now we are clothed in the righteousness of the Son, and that pleases the Father. All right, and that penalty of death that we were born with, by the way, we were born with that penalty of death over our heads. But when we come into our self, when we come into the knowledge of who we are and who he is, and we accept his Son and what his Son done on behalf of his people, all right, then that death penalty is removed. Now, some people say, but what about babies that die? Well, they're not the age of responsibility, accountability. That's a different scenario. All right, that's Alahayam's business. He already knows who and what they will become when they grow up. But we are dealing with living people today. When we are born, we're born with the penalty of death hanging over our heads. And when we come into the knowledge, and he will bring the knowledge to us, whether we want to accept it or not. If we refuse it, the death penalty remains. If we accept his Son, then that death penalty is removed. And now our spiritual walk begins. Our spiritual journey begins. All right? He made a way through his Son. No one can come to Ha'aba except through the Son. All right? Yet in both scenarios, we did not receive this promise of his rest, which is set in the future. You see, what HaMashiach did is to set us on the path so that we now can enter in to the rest of Alahayam Yahawah. HaMashiach himself did not give us this rest, but he gave us the means in which we can now enter in. If you understand what I'm saying. All right, let me rephrase that. Let me say that differently. HaMashiach is the beginning of our journey into the land of, to Alahayam Yahawah's rest. He is the door through whom we must enter into the kingdom, which is the rest, the eternal rest of Alahayam Yahawah. So he is not the rest itself. He is just the doorway through whom we go through. He is our Redeemer. He's the one who redeems us so that now we can enter in to the kingdom. And that is the eternal rest. Without HaMashiach, we can't enter in. But he himself is not that rest. He is just the veil between us and Ha'aba. And the only way to get to Ha'aba, who is the Father, is through the Son, who is the veil, the doorway. He is the good shepherd, all of the above. We enter in through him. All right? We are still living in the lands of our captivity, laboring day by day, spiritually and physically. Therefore, Hamashiach has not given us this eternal rest, but he made a way for us to enter into his rest by believing in him. So it's his rest as well. Don't don't separate the Father from the Son. All right? What belongs to the Father also belongs to the Son. Just know this. I know a lot of people get hung up over the fact that he's called the Son, but he's the expressed image of Yahawah. All right? All that belongs to Abba, who is Yahawah, is placed under him. So it goes to show that this rest is both physical and spiritual and at the same time perpetual, which cannot happen as it is also a holy rest. So let us not forget that Allah Hayam Yahawah blessed the Yawam HaShabath in anticipation of this future day of rest that he has set aside for all of his people. It is a holy day as he is holy, and it is soon a coming event. All right? So it is a coming event, even though it was fulfilled when Allah Hayam Yahawah rested on his day. He passed on the information to our forefathers to keep celebrating this day in anticipation of the eternal Shabath, which is coming at the end of the age. It will begin for those who are regathered of the southern kingdom, and those who are regathered of the northern kingdom. We will enter in this rest, meaning rest from all our labors. But the climax and the conclusion of his eternal rest is coming at the end of the age, when all evil is eradicated from off this earth, and when the final day, which will be the perpetual eighth day, begins. That is the day of rest. All right? So when will we enter into his rest? His rest is set in stages until we reach the ultimate event, that holy day. The first stage is believing in Hamashiach to be saved from his wrath. That's the first thing that we need to get right. So people that don't believe in Hamashiach, the wrath of Allah Hayam Yahawah is set against them. It's provocation. You see, just like what our forefathers had done. Let's look at the book of Yawam, the book of John, chapter 3, verse 14. And as Masha lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. Whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For Allah Hayam so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For Allah Hayam sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. You see, again, Allah Hayam Yahawah is repeating his message. Salvation can only come through the Son. And what are you being saved from? You're being saved from the wrath of Allah Hayam, where you will be eternally condemned, meaning you will end up in the lake of fire. He's not talking about being saved from your enemies. He's talking about being saved from his wrath. Verse 18. He that believes in him is not condemned. You see what I'm saying? But he that believes not is condemned already, because he had not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of Allah Hayam Yahawah. So this is what salvation is all about. Salvation is about being saved from the wrath of Allah Hayam Yahawah, who has the power to destroy both soul and spirit. Verse 19. And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that does evil hates the light. That means truth. They hate truth. Notice that people that deny HaMashiach, they don't want to hear the truth. All right? Neither comes to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. All right? But he that does truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in Al-Hayam. Meaning that you're doing the works of the Father. You're being obedient. Al-Hayam Yahawah put his redemption plan in place since the foundations of the world were laid. That should be were. He knew what would become of man that he had created. He knew that Adam and Hawa were going to sin. So even before they did it, he already made a redemption plan. He had put it in place. And so he made a way back for his people who believe in his son. Adam and Hawa were dwelling in his rest before their fall. And since that time, we have been on the pursuit of his rest, without knowing this is what we have been seeking. I know some people, they have this deep desire of just being in a place where it is peaceful and quiet. They don't want to be in a city. They don't want to be amongst a whole bunch of people. They just want to live in a quiet place. Because deep down inside of us is ingrained with a memory that was passed on from Adam and Hawa of peace that surpasses all our understanding. And people are in pursuit of this peace, and that's why they're constantly looking for ways and means to achieve this peace through things. But it's not through things. You cannot receive peace by building a house on an island, because that's not the peace that we're searching for. The peace that we're searching out for comes with the rest, the eternal rest that is promised to us. So you can go and buy a piece of property in a faraway land, get off the grid, and think that this is it. And then you're still not peaceful. Your minds aren't at rest. Your hearts are still provoked to frustration, anxiety. Because this is not the rest that we are to look for. The rest that we're looking forward to is to enter into his rest, which is his kingdom, which will lead us to eternal rest. That's the ultimate of the rest. The eighth day, where we will dwell in a new heavens and a new earth, a new Yahawah for all eternity. So once again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's read on. Let's see where I left off. Unfortunately for the rebellious, entering into his rest once again comes with stipulations, which are not readily accepted. HaMashiach is the door through whom we must enter through to his rest. So let's look at Yawam chapter 10, verse 7. Then said Yahawah unto them again, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers. All those preachers and teachers and prophets, they're all thieves and robbers. They come to steal truth, steal the inheritance from the children, steal the bread even from the children, to waylay them. And people accept them because they have a title, because they have sweetness in their mouths, People believe them and they follow after them. But they're thieves and robbers. But the sheep did not hear them. And then you have the other ones that refuse to believe in these liars. And they're the ones that are called rebels. All right. They stepped out from the churches. They stepped out from the Hebrew Israelite camps, and they're dwelling on their own. And this is what Allah Hayam wants. He doesn't want us to be with a whole bunch of people. You know how much misery there is in these Hebrew Israelite camps? You think there's a time for us to be battling against each other? We already got demons to deal with, and now we got to deal with these ones around us, these brethren that come with their own demons. You think you got time for that? You better separate yourself and focus on your relationship with the Father. He's not coming back for a group. He's coming back for one of a city, two of a family. That's what he's coming back for. And when you say two of a family, he's talking about husband and wife, or father and son, or mother and daughter, or mother and son, what have you. However, which way it comes. One of a city, two of a family. He's not coming back for no Hebrew Israelite groups. So get out from them. They're all going to perish. Starting with the leaders and anyone that follows them. Get out of those places, those groups. They're pagan anyway. Let's read on. Verse 9. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. So when he goes in through the door, and then he is out in the pasture. So you don't go in and out of the door. You go in and you're out in the kingdom. You're now in the kingdom. But it's just a strange phrasing of meaning you enter in through the door, and now you're not only in the kingdom, but you're out and about in the kingdom. And find pasture. When sheep find good pasture, that means that's it for them. They're on cloud 9. Right? They're in heaven. Nice green grass, water to drink, no wolves or prey. Not prey, because they're the prey. Those wild animals that that come after them as prey. All right? They're safe. They know they're safe. So now they can rest. They don't have to worry about anything. They don't need to be anxious about anything. No frustration. You come in and you have all that you need and more. His kingdom is going to be filled with so much that we can't even think about the more. Because even though you have people here on this earth that are wealthy and they have a lot of stuff, a lot of things, properties, what have you, whatever your heart desire, in the kingdom, you're going to have more. Much, much, much more. And you don't even need to work for it. You don't need to work by the sweat of your brow for it. You don't need to go and have money to buy it. It is all ours. It's called our inheritance. And the only thing that we need to do before we enter in through the door is by first believing in who the door is. That is HaMashiach. And we need to get our act together before the curtains are closed. Before our time has run out. Because there will come a time when grace is completed. When our time has come to a close. The verdict is in. Once the verdict comes in, that's it. Verse 10, the thief comes not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly, meaning excellent, superior, uncommon, more remarkable. So the life that he wants to offer us is a life in the kingdom where we're going to have abundance, where it's going to be excellent, superior to anything that you could ever see on this earth. You can't even imagine what life will be like in the kingdom. You see a wall here on the earth, walls in the kingdom are not like the walls here on the earth. Everything's going to be different. Even grass is going to be different. The trees are going to be different. Everything is going to be different. And not only will everything look different, but the smell, the fragrance, the beautiful fragrances that we're going to be filled with is going to be remarkable. The taste of things is going to be remarkable. Superior to anything that we've ever experienced. Our 5 senses will feel like 10. All right? It will feel like 10. This promise of entering into his rest is far more superior and remarkable than we can ever think or imagine. It is for this reason why there are stipulations attached to his rest, as wickedness cannot enter into his presence. Just like our forefathers who wrought wickedness before him continually, they were not able to enter into the promised land, the type and shadow of his rest. Did you know that? The promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey, is a type and shadow of his eternal rest. And this promised land is coming back again. The land that we call Israel today is nothing like what he is going to make it when the northern kingdom enters into it. He's going to clean it up. Madabar, book of Numbers, chapter 14, verse 20. And Yahawah said, I have pardoned according to your word, but as truly as I live, all the earth shall be filled with the glory of Yahawah. So that's the future that is coming. The entire earth will be filled with his glory. Because all those men who have seen my glory and my miracles, which I did in Matzorayim and in the wilderness, and have tempted me now these 10 times, and have not hearkened to my voice, surely they shall not see the land which I swore unto their fathers, neither shall any of them that provoked me see it. But my servant Caleb, who's Caleb, because he had another spirit with him, and have followed me fully, not partially, fully, him will I bring into the land whereinto he went, and his seed shall possess it. So this is the point of time when our forefathers received the report about the promised land from the 12 spies. He didn't mention Yahawah because it's without, it goes without saying that he will enter into the land. But Caleb, he mentioned him specifically because he was not the servant of Masha. Yahawah, who is Joshua, was a servant of Masha, and when Masha left the tabernacle, Yahawah remained in the tabernacle communing with Al-Hayam Yahawah. So it goes without saying that he will also enter into the promised land, because he was only, between him and Caleb were the 2 only people that saw the promise. The other 10 saw the giants. Okay? They saw the inconvenience of having to go in and war. But Yahawah and Caleb, they saw the promise, the sacred words of Al-Hayam Yahawah, and they were ready to take it. And unfortunately, they weren't able to go in. They had to leave, just like the other 10 and their people and the rest of the people. They had to spend 40 years before they were able to enter in to the promised land. They bore the consequences of what these wicked forefathers had done. But not anymore. Today, every man for himself. All right? We are not going to be bearing the consequences of other people. Other people don't believe, that's their problem. Al Hayam today is only dealing with those who believe. Okay? You cannot enter into the kingdom because of your leader. There are some leaders out there telling people that because of their faith, meaning the leader's faith, you can enter into the kingdom. That is a lie from the pit of hell, and that's a false teacher. All right? Every man for himself. They're not going to make it in no more than you if you follow after them. Okay. But he said, Caleb had another spirit with him, meaning he had Ruach HaKadash with him. All right. He did not have the same spirit as the other 10. They had Mammon with them, that spirit, that evil spirit. Okay. Masha and Ahawaram were not permitted to enter into the promised land due to disobedience, yet they did not perish. They died and will enter into the eternal promised land at the end of the age. However, many of our forefathers perished in the wilderness because they refused to believe in Allah Hayam, and this provoked him to wrath. Now, the second stage that we will be led to is peace, which comes through obedience. It is the assurance that our redemption is secure. So the peace is not merely the peace of mind, but it is the assurance that you will enter in to the promised land, into his rest. Okay? Meaning that your redemption is secured. Yawakanan chapter 14, the book of John chapter 14 verse 1. This is Hamashiach speaking to his disciples. Let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in Al Hayam, believe also in me. In my Abba's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And where I go, you know, and the way you know. Thomas said unto him, Adawan, we know not where you are going, and how can we know the way? Adawan here means master. Okay? Verse 6. Yahawah said unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto Abba but by me. Then we drop down to verse 26 of the same chapter. But the Comforter, who is Ruach HaKadash, whom Abba will send in my name, he shall teach you all things, and bring into remembrance whatsoever I have said to you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world gives, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. So when we believe in Hamashiach, okay, we have entered through the door, and we are on our way to the kingdom, because his Ruach is released to us, and he's the one who teaches us all things. He's the one that brings us truth, revealing the prophecies, revealing the mysteries, the parables. He's the one who gives us understanding. He's the one that helps us to discern, so that we can tell whether it is deception or whether it is truth, whether it's a lie or whether it's truth. That's discernment. All right? And he's the one who gives us wisdom to understand his word. All these things Ruach HaKadosh will do in us, and this is our preparation time until we are regathered. This entire time that we are journeying in this life, going through the hills and valleys of life, the storms. Sometimes we slip and fall, He picks us up. All of this are lessons as we receive from Him the correction and what we need to do to make things right. And we continue on so that we don't make the same mistake again. We now grow from that position and we continue to grow and mature spiritually. This is all Ruach HaKodesh doing. We can't do it ourselves. We can't pick up the Bible and read it and mature from reading the Bible. The maturity comes when Ruach HaKodesh reveals the truth. And that truth comes in and it seeks out what doesn't belong there. And it is removed. And when that is removed, truth then is planted in its place. And that truth is like a light. And that light, when the darkness tries to come and find that little remnant of darkness that it left behind, it can't find it. So it has no hold on us. And that's why in our lives, yes, we have been programmed and brainwashed to some degree to believe certain things because we were programmed in schools and through religion and even through our own family members, our parents. Why? Because they've been brainwashed to believe certain things. They've been programmed to believe certain things. And when we start to come into the real truth now, starting with our identity and our who Abba is, and we believe in HaMashiach, all these things have to be undone, unraveled, and removed. And not only those things, but the lifestyle that we once led. Things that we, and not only led, but sometimes people are still living a certain lifestyle. They're still shacking up. They're still sleeping around. When you come into contact with HaMashiach, when you believe in Him, you enter through His door, enter through Him as the door, and Ruach HaKodesh is released to you. Changes will take place in your life, and people will notice it. Some will comment and say, "I don't like how you are. I like how you were before. You were more fun." That's all right, and they'll leave you. You'll lose a lot of friends, if not all, and not to mention family members, if not all. You'll lose them all. But that's because darkness can't handle the light. And now you now are carrying the light. So the darkness is repelled by you and repulsed by you. And that light continues to grow as you continue to follow obediently after Alahayam, Yahawah. And when you do that, then peace, the peace comes. Not the peace of, I can not be, okay, because the opposite of peace is fear and anxiety and all those different things. But the peace that he is speaking of here is not just merely having a peace of mind, but also the assurance that you are redeemed. Because that's the greatest peace anyone can receive. To know at the end of the road, what is waiting for me is a heavenly inheritance. Yes, we'll also have the peace of mind where we can sleep well at night no matter what is happening around us. No matter what we're seeing, no matter what we're hearing, We can still have peace of mind, but it goes even beyond that. It is knowing, it is a knowing, an assurance of redemption. And so our hearts will not be troubled. Even if war broke out around you, you're not going to be worried because you have assurance. You have the blessed assurance of redemption. The war can't touch you because you are to be regathered. So there's nothing to worry about. I hear things going on in this neck of in these neck of the woods. I'm in the Middle East, right? I keep hearing all this in Rafa and this and that and that. I just laugh. I just laugh. I am not bothered by it. I know a couple of my friends will call me, oh, we hear this, we hear that. Are you okay? I'm like, what are you? Are you believing in the Most High, or are you believing in the report of these liars? All right. I hear them and I give praises to the Most High. I said one of two things will happen. Yes, war will break up, but nothing will ever happen to me. He'll come and retrieve me. He'll put me in a little cocoon until he's ready to retrieve me. And he's not going to let war come near my doorsteps anyway. I have that assurance. I have that faith. All right? Okay. Fear and anxiety come in the absence of faith, which leads us to grumbling and complaining. It also leads to being ungrateful. Never satisfied with the word of Allah Hayam and never believing. When we are obedient, we are blessed with a peace that surpasses all understanding. You can't even put it in words because it is peace that the world can't give. The world may talk about peace, world peace, but it can never be like the peace of Hamashiach that when he offers it to us, when we believe in him. It is because of assurance. You see, the world deals with insurance. That's why people waste all their money paying into health insurance, medical insurance, car insurance, house insurance, all kinds of insurances, right? But we have something called the blessed assurance that we don't have to pay anything for. And it is that blessed assurance that gives us the peace of mind that we can sleep at night, that no matter what is happening, we're not worried, we're not anxious, and we're not fearful. We trust in the promises of Allah Hayam Yahawah. Let's look at Obadiah chapter 11, verse 1. Now, this is the book of Hebrew, chapter 11, verse 1. Now, faith is the substance, meaning the assurance of things hoped for. You see, you come back to that word assurance. It's the blessed assurance. So, peace comes with faith. Because we have to have faith in order to believe in Hamashiach and what he did on the stake. The evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. And when we talk about the elders, we talk about our forefathers, all right? And not all of our forefathers obtained a good report, only the ones that believed in Allah Hayam and were obedient to him. Through faith, we understand that the world were framed by the word of Allah Hayam, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. So it's by the word of Allah Hayam Yahawah that the world came into being. The heavens and the earth were created. He spoke and they appeared. The only thing that he did not speak were the creations of man and woman. He molded man with his own hand. Then he took the rib of Adam and he molded Yahawah around that rib. So now they are a couple. They are a pair. All right. Now we drop down to verse 5 of the same chapter. By faith, Hanawak was translated, meaning he was conveyed to heaven. that he should not see death, and was not found because Allah Hayam had translated him. There's still a lot of foolish people out there talking about Hanawah died. He didn't die. He did not see death. He was taken to heaven in chariots. Well, in a chariot, but there were chariots with him. He was taken to heaven, to third heaven. He is there with Allah. He was another one that was taken in a fiery chariot to third heaven. Allah Hayam Yahawah had to replace Adam and Hawa. They were the two that were in the Garden of Eden to keep it. So he needed two people to keep his garden. And not only to do that, but they're also being prepared as the two witnesses to come to clean the land of Yahshua. But he was translated, he was taken up. For before his translation, he had a testimony that he pleased Allah Hayam. And how did he please Allah Hayam? Is because he had faith in him and he was obedient to every word that he spoke. Verse 6. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. It is impossible to please Allah Hayam Yahawah. Because when you have faith, you believe in what he says and you do it. Even though you may not have the evidence, but you still believe. Our forefathers had the evidence, but they lacked faith, so they couldn't believe. He showed them time and time again his miracles. They still can't believe. They still couldn't believe. And they perished in the wilderness because of unbelief. They had no faith. For he that comes to Allah Hayam must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So when you seek him, you will find him. But people want him to come and seek after them. Stage 3 will occur for only those who have the requirements that have been discussed. Believing in Hamashiach, enter into peace while living on this earth, and now to be regathered. Like Hanawah was conveyed to heaven in chariots of fire, so will the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom be regathered and taken into third heaven. The righteous remnant of the northern kingdom will be led into the wilderness in the second Exodus, while the righteous remnant of the Gentiles will not be regathered until the end of the millennial reign of Hamashiach. After that war, that last war, is called the War of Gog and Magog, is completed, then the righteous remnant of the Gentiles will enter in with us. We that are regathered will enter into his rest, as we will not have to labor anymore. Neither will we have to fight spiritual battles anymore. We will literally be at rest, as we have entered into the presence of Allah Hayam Yahawah to await that glorious day of eternal rest for everyone, including the earth. Even the earth itself, herself, will enter in eternal rest. And let me just rephrase that. The earth is going to be renewed, and that will be the earth's eternal rest, because heaven and earth will pass away. All right? But the earth that is renewed will enter into eternal rest like everyone, because we all will be made new as well. Okay? Bara'ah Shayath, chapter 2, verse 1. Now I skipped this scripture in part 1. Yes, I don't know how I did that, but I skipped over this, and this is a pretty important scripture when it comes to understanding the rest of Allah Hayam Yahawah. So we're going to look at it here, and gleaned from it. Thus the heavens and the earth, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, Allah ended his work which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And Allah blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which Allah created and made. So this is the reason why this seventh day is blessed and sanctified. And anyone who keeps this day will also be blessed and sanctified. Okay? In the beginning, Allah Yahawah rested on the seventh day from his 6 days of creating the heavens and the earth and all therein. He blessed this day on which he rested, and he hallowed it. Then he commanded his people Yashrael to keep the seventh day as their Shabath rest, in remembrance of this day in which he rested. All who obey his commandment he sanctifies according to his promise. This highest of all holy days is more than just a remembrance. It is also a future event where we who are obediently keeping Shabath on the earth will also enter into his rest, which is the eternal Shabath. This eternal Shabath will occur after all the judgments of Allah are completed. All evil is put away in the lake of fire. The old heavens and earth are passed away, and now the new heavens and the new earth and new Yahawah are created. This will be the 8th day, the perpetual day of perpetual rest, the eternal Shabath. So let's take a look and see what eternal Shabath is going to look like. Revelation chapter 21, starting from verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. So he's going to destroy the heavens because they're old, and the earth because it's going to be old, and of course the Yahawah, which is destroyed already. Okay? So all these they're going to pass away. Heavens and the earth are going to pass away. And there was no more sea, although there will be the sea of water which will flow from the throne of heaven, the throne of Allah Yahawah, sorry. That's the only sea of water that they will have. But the oceans and the seas that we have, they're not going to exist anymore. And I, Yawachanan, saw the holy city, New Yahawah, coming down from Allah out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of Allah is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Allah himself shall be with them and be their Allah. So this is the covenant that Allah wanted to have with our forefathers, and he still wants us to have with him today. To be his people and he be our Allah. And this will be the future of this covenant, the fulfillment of this covenant in the future. On the 8th day, the perpetual rest of Shabath. Okay? Let's move down to verse 4. And Allah shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. What are the former things? What will be the former things? The things that we endured while living in this body of flesh. Aging, pain, suffering, the sin nature. all of those things will be gone, vanished, passed away. Verse 5, and he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. Verse 6, and he said unto me, It is done. I am Ah and Tha, the beginning and the end. So Ah and Tha, they use the Greek, the Alpha and Omega, but we don't deal with Greek. We deal with our own language, which is the Oberai language. All right? And it's funny because Ah and Tha, when they're put together, is that word that means sign. Af. Okay? It means sign. The fakers in our land, those Jewish people, they say it is a word that cannot be defined. But it is a word that can be defined because this is what it is here. This is who it is here. And he is our sign too, our signpost. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of water of life freely. That is the river of water that cleanses us of our sin nature. Okay? He that overcomes shall inherit all things. Let's read that again. He that overcomes the evils on this earth, that presses on, that walks obediently to the word of Allah, that believes in his son, and caused his faith or her faith to blossom, shall inherit all things. And I will be his Allah, and he shall be my son. That's a generic word meaning his child. All right? But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. The first death is the passage of, well, death is when you pass from life to death. This body dies, goes back to the ground. That is the first death. The second death is the lake of fire. You don't want to go through there. You don't want to be there. Because look at the people that you'll be hanging out with. Fearful, unbelieving, abominable. And when he says abominable, talking about those ones that change themselves. Male to female, female to male, machine and man. That's the abominable. That do other abominable things too, not just that. And murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars. You want to spend your eternity with this group of people? And demons and devils and fallen angels and oh my, no. You think you have problems in your workplace where people are talking about you and doing things against you? Family members, you think you got trouble here on this earth where you can walk away and find a decent friend or at least one decent family member? The lake of fire doesn't have one decent person. Not one. There's decency will not be part of their qualifications. It's all wickedness that you're going to be enduring and spending eternity with in comparison to the kingdom of heaven. Who will want to live for all eternity in the lake of fire? Fire and brimstone. It's hot and it's smelly. That's what brimstone is, sulfur. Sulfur smells like rotten eggs. You want to smell that morning, noon, and night for all eternity? And feel that you're on fire for all eternity? That's just the beginning of it. How about the fact that you're going to be covered with sores for all eternity. You have no clothing, so you're going to be naked for all eternity. You got to deal with all the wickedness that's going to be there for all eternity. You see the wicked ones that run in this world, all of them going to be down there in the lake of fire. And you got to deal with them. You're not going to have one single friend. Not one. It's every man for himself, every demon for himself, every devil for himself, every fallen angel for himself. They're not going to be groups ganging together. Nah, it's every person for themselves. And you see how Allah Hayam Yahawah shield the ugliness of these evil spirits? Well, you're going to be seeing ugly like you've never seen before. And you think you can die? Death is down there with you. Even hell is down there with you. There's no dying. There's no food. There's no water. There's nothing pleasant to look at. Nothing at all. You look up, you see red. You look down, you see red. It's all going to be the worst place for anybody to go and live. And now that we have the opportunity to turn our lives around so that we don't end up there, because he's not going to create, or he did not intend to create the lake of fire for people. But people are going to end up there too. That's the second death. Revelation chapter 22, verse 10. And he said unto me, seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. So he said that more than 2,000 years ago to Yawakanan. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. So if you want to walk around and do wickedness, go ahead, keep doing it. He that is filthy, let him be filthy still. You're defiling yourself? Go ahead, keep doing it. He that is righteous, let him be righteous still. So this is an encouragement now for those who is walking in righteousness. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop. He that is holy, let him be holy still. It's righteousness and holiness that Allah Hayam Yahawah always seek after in his people. And he said, keep doing it. Keep doing the things that please me. Verse 12. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according to his work shall be. So reward here can mean the reward of the second death, which is the lake of fire, or eternal life, which is HaShabath, the eternal rest of Allah Hayam Yahawah. That is also a reward. And that reward is for the righteous. That reward is for the holy, the ones that are walking in holiness. The second death are for those who are unjust and filthy. Verse 13. I am Ah and Tha, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city of New Yahawah, which is where we will spend the 8th day, the perpetual day of perpetual rest, the eternal Shabath. Need I say any more? I think I've said it all. Don't you think so? Okay. And that's the ending of looking at Shabath and understand it, to understand it, that it is not just about week to week celebrating this day, but it is also looking ahead for the eternal Shabath. And now we will read the blessing for Yashwa'al, taken from Ba Madabar, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. That's the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24 to 26. Yabarakat Yahawah, wa Yashamarak. May Yahawah bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahawah panayo alayak wa yahanak. May Yahawah cause his face to shine upon you and have faith upon you. Yasha'a Yahawah panayo alayak wa yasham lak shalom. May Yahawah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And now we're going to recite the command that Allah Hayam Yahawah tells us to recite daily, taken from Debarayam chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. Verses 4 and 5, that is Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. Shama'o Yashwa'al Yahawah Allah Hayana Yahawah Ahad wa Ahabath Ath Yahawah Allah Hayak Bakal Ababak Wabakal Napashat Wabakal Ma'adak. Hear, O Yashwa'al, Yahawah our Allah Hayam is one Yahawah, and you shall love Yahawah your Allah Hayam with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And with that I will say, Shalom, Shalom, all praises to the Most High, Avaya.